Okay, so today's topic is about framing. And framing is just, like the frame on a picture. It's deciding consciously what we put inside our drawing and what we leave out. And it's a really important tool in drawing. It's something to start thinking about, when you're sketching. Now, this is a really big topic, and it has a lot to cover. So I'm going to try and keep it really simple, and then we can build on it in further sessions. So the reason why this can be important is it can mean the difference between your drawing being flat or sort of uninteresting, or sort of keeps the viewer uninterested or interested in looking at your drawing. It's also a way to tell a story, lead the viewer into your sketch. It's a really important thing that sometimes we forget to think about. So we're going to do some practice today, and I've made a little sort of still life with different shapes and size objects that we can practice from first, and then you're going to practice on your own with things you find at home. Now, one thing is, when you're looking to frame your sketch or your drawing, you have to sort of make a way to see, how you see like directors doing this kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do. We need to visually frame or block off what it is we want to sketch. One thing you can do at home, it's really easy and a really good tool, is you can cut out from cardboard or paper or anything 2 L's, and they can be used to make a frame that you then look through when you're trying to decide how to frame your sketch. So this is a really handy tool, and it takes about 3 seconds to make and is free. So I highly suggest, if you want to keep sketching, to make one of these for yourself at home. I mean, you don't even really need to. You can also just use your hands, right? Like this, and I normally close one eye and look through my frame with another eye. So you can kind of practice, like the further you take it away from your face, the more zoomed in you get. And so the closer you bring it to your face, your eye, the more enters into your picture. So this is the general way that you can go about framing, with your hands or with 2 L's that you cut out from home. So we're going to do a couple of exercises. And I'm going to show you first, I'm going to share my screen with you. Oh, the audio is cutting out. Who's saying that? Marsha. Marsha, are you hearing me? Okay, can everyone hear me? Let's see. Just tell me in the chat box if you can't hear. Yes. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay, sounds like people can hear. So if you can't hear or see or something's going wrong technically, let me know in the chat box, or unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, we're doing our best with technology here. Italy doesn't always have, the best Wi-Fi. So I'm going to show you some images. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're just going to talk about framing. And what we're going to do are some really simple drawings, just line drawings, no shading. And we're going to think about how we put objects inside our frame. So let me share my screen. Let's see. So here's this little still life that we're going to work from today. It's something that I did a couple of sketches from this morning. I chose different objects that have different shapes: tall, round, rectangular, and flat. So before we start our own sketches, I just wanted to have you think about a few ideas. Here's a little sketch. You see how simple it is. I'm not worried about how good my drawing is. What I'm worried about is looking at how they fit together in the space. So here I let one of the objects sort of be cut off by the edge of the frame. And here, what I did was, I didn't divide the space evenly, right? The top space is smaller than the bottom space. And these objects are a little bit more to the left. And this object here is sort of pointing and telling you, look here in this direction. Oops. Okay, in this sketch, I did the opposite, where I left a lot of space up here. I made this space smaller, right? So I divided the space in the opposite way this time. And still the objects are on the left, and this is here on the right. Now, something to keep in mind is try not to put everything right in the dead center. And also try and think about the division of the space, either vertically or horizontally. Think about making it not exactly the same, like the top's a bigger space or the top is a smaller space. And then here's another one, a vertical one. And here, again, this space is really big and this is small, right? And this is kind of more interesting maybe because it sort of enhances the verticality of these two. And this little guy, again, is pointing and telling you to look there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a series of little sketches on our own based on just looking at this photograph of the still life that I made for you. And it has great pasta. Okay. Sorry, that's a message in the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to have you work on your own versions of making small sketches that you frame from this photograph. And we're going to time them. Now, a few things to think about. One thing is draw an actual frame, right? Like draw a rectangle first, and then make your sketch inside of it. And that's because, for a few reasons. One thing is, if you make your frame first, it makes you stop and think about exactly how you're going to fill it, right? Another thing is, try to think, you don't use all of the objects, right? You can just choose one or two things. You can let something cut off on one of the sides. Think about also keeping the line of this line that I used. It's the line of the table, right? Otherwise, the objects might feel like they're floating in space. So I'd say we'll do 2 minutes for each sketch where you have to make one that has more space on top than the bottom, one that has more space on the bottom than the top, and one that's up to you, right? So these can be vertical, they can be horizontal, it doesn't matter. And don't worry so much like, does it look like the thing? The point of this is to just start our minds thinking analytically about how we're designing our drawing. So, does anyone have any questions? You can put them in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, okay, so first for this first exercise, I'm gonna give you a photograph to work from so that we're all working from the same thing. And then in the next sketch, you can use objects that you find at your house, and I'll give you time to look around and find something. Okay, are there any other questions? Does it seem clear? Okay, you wanna try it? So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see this better, and I'll work together from it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to time this for, we'll have 2 minutes for each sketch. So one has to have more space on the top and less on the bottom. One has to have less space on the top and more on the bottom. And the third one is up to you. So we'll start now with 2 minutes each. Okay. And go. Okay, just a few more seconds. Okay, and stop. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll do all three in a row, and then we'll stop and share and have questions and comments and feedback. Okay, so it's time for a second sketch, either with more space on the top or more space on the bottom. Okay, ready and go. Okay. And stop. Okay. Now we'll just do one more sketch, and you decide on your own framing how you want to put it. So you don't have to put in all the objects, or you can put them all in. You can cut some off, make it tall, make it long, whatever you like. Just try something different this time. Okay, 2 minutes. Ready? And start.
Scusa,
Dimmi.
vuoi parlare o devi dire?
Sto seguendo, però per ora puoi parlare.
Allora, poi chiamami, ma se domani pranzo con lei o meno.
Vi sentiamo
Ok.
tutti.
Ok, sto chiacchierando con mio figlio che ha urgenza di parlarmi ora.
No, sto scherzando. Vabbè, intanto abbiamo...
Se lo fossi in chiamata pure
Okay, and stop. Okay, I'm gonna take the picture down. Okay, great. So does anybody want to share? You can either type in the chat box, or you can put your video on and show us what you've done, or just talk if you'd like. How was that? Was it silly? Was it hard? Was it confusing? Was it easy?
For me, it was nothing because I get here late. I was trying to do some shopping, so I don't know
That's okay.
what I had to do. I just started drawing.
That's okay. We'll do
tried
some more in a minute.
Yeah, I know. No, not. Don't worry.
Yes, we're not on a tight schedule.
Mm-hmm. I was
Okay,
trying to do some shopping.
Okay, that's okay. Hi, Marsha.
Hi, Kelly.
So can you hold your paper a little bit closer and tilt it down? And to your right. To your right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so what happened? This is really nice.
So, I don't know if I had a feeling, but the last one I did, I kind of zoomed in.
Uh-huh.
I found I was looking at the picture in a different way. So that's the top stuff. The second one was more on the bottom. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the last one was just kind of including the two pots. I don't know if you can see that well.
Great. And so which one do you think was more successful and why?
I think the last one was when I was zooming in at one is less. There's fewer things to it. And I think I had a sense of what was in the picture better somehow. You know, the other was trying to like do too much, it seemed. And the final one, I kind of felt I could just kind of look at the image. So that was me.
So that's a great idea, right? You can zoom in and get really close. I mean, you could even get so close as it almost becomes abstract shapes if you want to.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
so, right. More is not necessarily better in this case. Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you for sharing. So someone says, it was, oh yeah, so, okay, someone asked, Jen, do you draw the lines first? The line that shows top and bottom. That's up to you. Sometimes it might be easier to keep track of in your mind if you draw, I think what you mean is the horizontal line, right? Like where the table is. So if you have in mind, okay, I want to make the table shorter, right, a smaller space, go ahead and draw that line first so you'll remember to keep that space smaller. It doesn't matter. It's sort of up to you, whatever works, better for you, and also what makes sense to you in your mind. Proportion was important. Yes, so proportion is important, which means scale in a way, right? Like what Marcia was saying, sort of if you zoom in or pull back, right? Depends how much you fit in the page. So that's a really important choice about making things interesting and sort of the interaction of shapes and space. I mean, one thing that this really makes you notice is that the entire space is active, right? So it's not like just because I didn't draw in a certain space, it's not part of the drawing. So every inch of space is part of your drawing. So we're trying to think about how to use it in an interesting way, even if there's nothing there. Okay, someone said, I found this more fun and easier than the contour drawing. Okay, I wonder why, because we're still using contour outlines, but you're thinking about it in a different way, right? We're not studying the actual objects. We're sort of studying the space this time. Okay, so that's right. Great. Does anybody else want to share their drawing or anything they sort of learned from this, or have any questions like, why are we doing this? Okay.
Okay, we can share actually.
That would be great. Hi,
Hi.
you're Nadia Mateo.
Yes.
Hi.
So how do we? Okay. Oh, here we are.
There it is. Hello.
I don't know if you can see it actually.
Yeah, if you put it close, I know it's hard to see on these things. They're
It's
not
blue,
really
so-
made for it. Oh, these are great. I love these.
They're well.
Well, that's Mateo's.
Nadia,
and
let's see yours.
This is mine. So
That's beautiful. Wow. Will you put it down a little bit? Down. Yeah. Okay, and then to your left. Oh, yeah. That's one. Beautiful. So which ones did you think were the better drawings, and why?
Well,
which ones?
I thought of it like almost like if I were to take a picture of the
Yeah.
scene. So it's like changing angles. In fact, the proportion there are actually not correct. It's like I moved the object on the table. That's what I would have
Yeah.
done. I would have taken a picture. And the last one basically is just a zoom in on a detail that maybe I wanted to focus on. So that's pretty much how I went about it.
Okay, and did you like zooming in or zooming out more? Which did you think was a better drawing?
I think zooming in gives you more details.
Yeah, I like zooming in as well because
Yeah.
it allowed me to observe the shapes and the spaces closer, and that was interesting. And then it could eventually become something a bit more abstract in the future. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, so maybe it's not so important that we know exactly what the objects are, right? They sort of take on their own life
Yeah.
when you look closely. Very
Yeah.
cool. Thanks so much for
Thank
sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, shy people. That's good. So I hope, right? I hope you feel like you learned something. You might feel like, I'm not sure about this yet, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it again, and this time we're gonna do it where you choose your own objects. So what I say is I'll give you like 1 or 2 minutes, and really you can just use anything that's around you. I would say find 3 objects and make them be different shapes. Maybe one is round like a cup, something, right? I have this mirror, or I have a stapler. It's kind of more square and boxy, but it can literally be anything, even a pen or whatever you like. So I'll just give a minute. Okay, so does everybody have 3 objects? Yes, no. If not, speak up now. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're basically going to do the same thing. You're going to put your objects in front of you somewhere, right on a table where you can see them clearly. And what you want to do is, we're going to do 3 sketches again. And the first thing to do is make your frame on your paper. So decide, is it going to be horizontal? Is it going to be square? Is it going to be vertical? And how long, how short? Okay, and then think about overlapping objects, like putting one in front of another. Think about giving context and showing us where your drawing of your objects is. So is there a table, a line that you can indicate of a table, or even a vertical line if there's something behind it? And right, overlap. And then I would say do at least one sketch that leaves one object partially cut off. So you don't show the whole thing, but show part of it. Okay, so we're gonna try this one more time with your own objects. Does anyone have any questions? If I'm not explaining something or something's not clear, please just speak up and let me know. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to time us again. I'm really into time drawing, if you can't tell. And I'm going to give us 2 minutes for each sketch. And then we're going to come back together and share and see what happened. Okay, are you ready? Okay. Let's start. 2 minutes for your first one.
This.
Okay, just 5 more seconds. Okay, and stop. So we'll do 2 more, and then after that, we'll share them all. So again, make one object overlapping another in one of your sketches, and another one have, one object be cut off and not entirely in the picture. And in another one, include some indication of context or where it is by, indicating like the line of the table or a door or a wall, something so your objects aren't floating in space. Okay, one more time, we'll do a new one. And 2 minutes, go. Okay, and stop. Okay, we're going to do one last drawing now. So just a reminder again, in one of them have 2 objects overlapping. In one of them, cut one object off so you don't see it completely. And remember to give context, like show where your objects are somehow, indicate it so they're not floating in space. Okay, one last drawing for 2 minutes. And start. Okay, and stop. Okay, so I'd love to hear either in the chat box or you can unmute yourself. What happened this time and how did it go? What did you discover? Yeah, okay, so you thought about, Linda said, I thought more about the framing this time. And so in thinking about the framing, did it have you draw differently or think about the placement of the objects differently? Focus fatigue by the last one. I put the most of the objects in the last one and found that difficult. Okay, yeah, like squeezing it all in or right. Focus fatigue. I put the most of the objects. Okay. Yes, the placement. Right. Like really consciously choosing where to place things in the frame is the point of this exercise. Okay, it needs a lot of practice to get something that looks good. Yeah, so the great thing about and sort of the purpose of these small, quick little sketches is, for example, if I want to spend more time making a longer drawing, this could actually save you hours of your life by thinking about and considering carefully, what's the most interesting placement of the objects. So these only take a minute or two. They don't have to be exactly right. Something that will, is important is maybe the proportion of them in relationship to each other, which we didn't really talk about, and that's fine. We'll talk about that another time. But this is why these can really be useful, right? They're quick, they're easy, and they allow you to start exploring an idea, really easily before you make a longer sketch. Okay, Marcia said she zoomed out. And how was zooming out? Did you like zooming out better than zooming in? Yes, it's very confusing because we're on Zoom. But, in terms of framing, close or far away. Okay, you did not like zooming out. Yeah, it seems like people have said a little bit, the more you pull back, the more it tends to be this sort of dead space, right? You get these small objects in big space, and they don't really have any, they seem to lose this like life of their own when you're trying to fit all the objects in the space. So a really nice way is to challenge yourself to zoom in, even so much so that all you're doing is making these weird abstract shapes, and you have the thought like, nobody is going to know what this is. I mean, one thing is, you don't always have to know what something is in a drawing. It can still be an interesting drawing. Somebody said, I had to expand my frame to improve the position. Get. Okay, so does that mean, yeah, like, okay, you had to make the frame bigger to sort of see how to fit things in?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so what did you discover? Oh, okay, you're already, okay. Someone said, I changed to a narrow vertical format and very close up. So two of the items were cut off, and that made the composition much more interesting. Yeah, right, because if you have vertical things, right, you can play with, enhancing the sense of verticality by making a very vertical composition, or you can play with its opposite and create tension by making a horizontal and cutting it off. But you can cut it off, right? These are a lot of good ideas that you can experiment with. Okay, does anybody want to share their drawings or just insights or thoughts? Okay, great. Linda wants to share. Sure. Let's see. Hello. Hold on, let me unmute you. Yeah, can you unmute yourself?
Okay.
There you
There.
go.
Can you see that's the first one?
Great. Is this a glove? This is like
Yes.
a piece drawing. So what did you get out of doing this exercise?
I like the placement, the idea of thinking about placement. And on this one, I didn't go outside the frame, but on an, I don't think. A little bit I did with this jar. It's a little bit
Yeah, actually it's
outside.
really nice. The three shapes in the foreground, like they sort of lead your eye in. This one, the mask, I think, is pointing to the glove, and then how the glove is overlapped with the other object. It's actually really interesting.
Okay, on the next two, I took out the bag because I didn't have
Yeah.
time. I'll show
Right.
you.
I thought it was, did you find it to be distracting, or why did you take
No, I took it out because I didn't feel like I had time in the 2 minutes. That was
Right.
the
2
second
minutes is
one.
not a very long time.
Yeah. And then
Oh, great.
that's the third one.
I like this one with where it's cut off at the bottom in the
Mhm.
foreground. It's interesting, right? I'm sort of wondering, like, what is that? But it makes me look into the drawing.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
Was this challenging, or?
Well, to complete it within the 2 minutes was challenging, but not if you were just trying to discover where you want the placement. If you're thinking about too much detail, yes, that's
Yes, no,
not
right.
enough
So, yeah, no, you can't do detail. And maybe I should have said you could do smaller ones, so it would allow you to do more in a shorter period of time.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. Okay, yes, Peter, are you going to share?
I'll give it a go.
Great.
Oh, how are we doing?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I like, so are these you on your screen that they're like vignettes or croppings from the computer screen?
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, so were you
I think you've
drawing
given me more
yourself?
credit than I have.
Okay, so I really like this one in the top left that I can see right now. It's interesting with that object in the foreground, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like pointing up and leading your eye in, saying, "Look look here." But how did you find these exercises? Oh wait, hold on, I can't hear you. 1 second. Let me unmute you.
My fault. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes, say it again, sorry.
I think I might have focused a little too much on the detail of the actual objects rather than the placement of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, they ended up reasonably interesting because of the sort of the juxtaposition within the frame.
Mm-hmm.
For what it's
Well,
worth.
did you feel like you learned something by trying the different ideas of?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like
placing.
the first three that I did, back off your picture, I hadn't even thought of getting in close or getting further back. I hadn't thought of that. I was just placing them somewhere in the frame. And then I copied,
Right.
obviously, the couple who came on, I think Nadia and Matteo. I thought, now there's a good idea. And there's only
Great.
one way to reward a good idea is to copy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that's what, right? So being able to see other people's drawings is really helpful. Right? People think of things that we'll never think of on our own.
True.
Very cool. Okay, thanks. Do you want to say? Okay. Anyone else?
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No. No.
Oh,
It's okay.
okay.
Thanks, Peter. Okay. Does anyone else want to share? Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your day to come and sketch. I said at the beginning, you can always write to me by email. My name is Kelly Medford, and so if you Google me or go to kellymedford.com, my website comes up, and there's a page where you can just write to me if you have questions, if you want some feedback, if you want to make any suggestions or you want me to cover a certain topic, I'm happy to do that. Also, on the Sketching Room Tours Facebook page, I'm going to post these videos, and you can watch them again there or share them. And you can also ask me questions there. I'm going to